name is Nicole, and today I'm going to discuss the biomechanics of hooping for my functional biomechanics analysis project. First, I'm going to talk about the movements involved with this exercise and how forces generated from muscle movement transfers to movement of a hoop. I will also discuss how to improve efficiency and reduce fatigue during prolonged exercise. Many of you are probably wondering, what is hooping? Hooping is a form of exercise that can be taught to any age and ability level and incorporates both gross and fine motor movements. Hooping is manipulation of an artistic movement or dancing with one or more hoops. Hoops can be made of metal, wood, or plastic and come in varying weights and sizes. The benefits of hooping are improved body awareness, cardiovascular fitness, and strength. Just about everyone can benefit from hooping. Children can benefit from increasing their awareness of how their body moves, and it's a great way to work on gross motor skill development. Adults can see a benefit in improved balance and body awareness, which helps to improve overall fitness level. Now let's get into the mechanics of teaching the movement. We start by standing with feet hip-width apart and staggered one foot in front of the other. Knees are flexed but soft, and weight is distributed into the heels. Flex the hips forward, contracting the abdominals, and keep the torso up tall. This gives the student the starting position. The first thing we do is to push the hoop around the body several rotations in order to get a feel for where the hoop touches. Next, we practice the movement of flexion and extension at the hips in order to generate the angular motion of the hoop. Here you can see how the linear motion of the body translates force into angular motion of the hoop. At first, the movements are exaggerated to show how flexion of the hips pushes the hoop out and around the body. The second point of contact is when the hoop hits the lumbar region, and the extension of the hips generates more force to complete the hoop's rotation. The goal is to improve this movement so it becomes more efficient and the individual is able to generate equal force with less wasted energy. The movements of the body are flexion at the knee, flexion of the hip followed by extension, lumbar flexion followed by lumbar extension, abdominal contraction and linear motion of the hips, which allows for force generation to move the hoop. In a side stance position, the forces to move the hoop are being generated from flexion of the oblique muscles. You can see here that, again, linear motion of the hips and torso create angular motion of the hoop. The speed at which the hoop moves is dependent on two factors. One is the force that is generated by the individual, and two is the centripetal or kinetic energy of the moving hoop. Hoops can be made into different sizes that also vary in weight. The size of the hoop affects the movement of the individual. Once the basic waist hooping movement is taught, the movement pattern remains the same, only the forces needed to move a different size hoop will change. The individual will have to adjust movement to generate appropriate force. With a larger hoop, there is a greater moment of inertia, which requires a greater initial force to put the hoop in motion, and also a greater force to keep the hoop moving. We can notice here the exaggerated movements when using a larger hoop. Once the kinetic energy of the hoop is established, the individual may adjust the force of her movement to maintain the centripetal force of the hoop. As you can see, a smaller hoop requires much less force, and the movement of the hoop and individual happen at a faster tempo. Improvements in skill development come from practice. Once the student becomes more familiar with the movement, new movements can be added. A qualitative analysis can be used to assess improvement in hooping by observing movements at the beginning and end of a performance. Muscular endurance is the key to smooth movements and the ability to maintain force generation throughout a session. As in any form of endurance exercise, Biomechanics may become altered when muscle fatigue sets in. To improve core muscular endurance, the instructor may suggest performing core strengthening exercises as part of a strength training routine. The biomechanics of hooping are much more detailed than the basic movements I've covered. What I discussed today was simply the starting point from which to build upon.